I'm suffering.
Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome back to the 1K World Cup. We are now officially done with the semifinals round, and only 6 teams remain in the tournament. But we couldn't let you guys go without settling our final order of business for the weekend. That is right, it is time for the finals map pool showcase. As always, my name is Sparky, and I'm joined in the commentary booth by none other than Sunny. Sunny, how you doing?
And then there were 6. Hello, Sparky. I am doing great after a very hype semifinals weekend. One only thing left to close out the weekend with what the remaining 6 teams will be playing next weekend. And oh boy, I cannot wait to see how this will go. I believe we're going to have the same procedure of maps from last round. It's still best of 11, first to 6, same amount of maps, just harder.
Yeah, that's the important thing. It's gonna get harder. But I think we're gonna start seeing some maps from like grand finals pools from some of these tournaments. Finals maps for sure, and maybe some of the overtuned semifinals maps from previous iterations of Joke. But with that out of the way, as you mentioned, this is still best of 11, so first team to 6 points will be seeing themselves over the finish line. And without further ado, we can go ahead and get this started. There's some pretty interesting maps on this wheel already, and we're going to choose through 4 of them.
Oh man, I mean, we had another triple II or
2L.
IIL or 2L map all the way back in qualifiers, actually.
Qualifiers, yeah.
And we're seeing them again. That's Joke 3 finals. Vanguard 1. And next up is Niar Lathotep's Dreamland.
This is one of the few maps that I don't actually recognize on this wheel. I imagine this is probably from Joke 1, that or I cast it.
This is actually Joke 3.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, this is Joke 3 finals.
The trauma of Joke 3 still lingers, and I've cast it from my memory, but that's neither here or there. We can keep going here. We're gonna go into the third map of the 4, and this is also from Joke 3, I think.
Are we gonna have a full Joke 3 rice pool?
I think our hosts might actually appreciate that. I don't think they want to reminisce on some of their older finals rice picks. These are the most tame picks so far. The 2L map notwithstanding. That one kind of that one's kind of rough, but let's see what the last rice map is gonna be.
And will it be a Joke 3 map? It's gonna be Gate of Doom. That is, I believe, that's Joke 1.
Oh dear Lord.
It's Joke 1 semis, though. Joke 1 semis.
I mean, I did say the overtuned semifinals maps, and if it is a semifinals map, oh boy, this is probably going to be a bit of a nightmare. So, I think you were alluding to this. We're gonna go ahead and go into the rice maps for the pool already. Show you guys what you guys are gonna be expecting. So we don't keep you guys any longer than necessary. So let's go ahead and load up that first rice pick, and it is gonna be Vanguard 1.
Yeah, and I know there are lots of Vanguard iterations, but this is the first one. And I believe, if I'm correct, there are other versions of this. And I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Vanguard 1 is the one everyone knows, just sheerly from the elected love chart. But starting off this map with some pretty tricky gallops and even some bursty, I believe 1/6, maybe even 1/8. What I'm seeing here, even though with its tricky, like, kind of like polyrhythmic type charting, it's not like level down. I mean, there is this pretty tricky to handle doublet section right here with some gallops that lead into the first drop. But it's not really as what you would think as what it was with level down all the way back in qualifiers.
Yeah, that being said, handling these stream transitions, I believe those are not straightforward 1/6, 1/8 runs. I think those are 1/7s because of the fact that you're still dealing with that polyrhythmic structure. Really, the hardest part of this chart is just, I would say, just keeping the rhythm in check. It kind of goes a little bit freeform, similar to Ghost, but in a more tame way. You're kind of dealing with that melody that just goes throughout the entirety of the chart, and we see a bit of a reprisal. We begin to add some layers to the streams, those 3-note gallops kind of interrupting the straightforward 1/4. And I mean, honestly, not the worst start to the rice pool. This was definitely a lot easier than I was remembering for a finals level map.
This map is kind of like an onion. It has layers.
It has layers.
And
very well said.
What I like to touch upon as well with that map, there are that ending drop where it like transitions from very fast bursts into gallops. I feel like I'll see lots of trip ups just trying to go back and forth from changing like speed. But we're moving on to Rice 2. It's going to be Niar Lothotep's Dreamland. And already opening up with a pretty streamy beginning with some gallops in between. And this is kind of like, the name is escaping my head, but it was used in the semifinals.
Angel Dust.
That's quarterfinals. This Charlotte.
Charlotte.
I can't read Roman numerals.
No worries. But this was, I mean, we have a tech pick, we have a stream pick. The wheel doing us a little bit of favors, but that being said, I mean, these are both from Joke 3's finals, so to be expected, the categories that these maps fill can't really overlap if they are part of the same tournament structure. That being said, it is 200 BPM streams. Those 1/8 bursts cap out at about 400 BPM, but not for a very long duration, so not equaling the level of the speed maps that we're probably going to be seeing later on, but still some pretty nasty transitions as well. But I mean, honestly, if you can handle the stream picks from previous rounds, this should be no different, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like we have came to the final 6 teams that can basically play these types of maps like it's literally nothing. I mean, I know there are some filthy speed players out there that can absolutely destroy anything, no matter how fast it is. And seeing these 200 BPM streams kind of just fly down, I mean, the only thing that really stands in your way is just, can you handle holding your consistency for this long? I know maybe, especially this late into the map, and especially with those bursts as well, not being that helpful at all. We can definitely see some players rushing or dragging on some of those streams for quite a long period of time. And that transition out into the 1/3 as well, that can definitely trip up some players. This is the I'm trying to think of the map. but it kind of had the same procedure as that one.
Yeah, some long
I
1/4
believe-
streams into 1/8, transitioning back. But yeah, that'll do it for Rice 2. This will be Rice 3, Mirage Garden. And this is, I'd say, a harder version of Disorder in terms of some of the technical transition bursts that were found there, just kind of taken up a notch. And again, another Joke 3 pick, so not going to overlap with the tech, not going to overlap with the streams. This is a little bit more wild cardy in terms of structure.
Yeah, as we're getting into some tricky doublets and immediately going in with some pretty tricky burst sections that do cap out at what I would assume to be, that look to be 1.6, so I'm not going to say 312, but something more like in that 200 BPM range that do kind of can trip up some of the players on those bursts, and especially those transitions out into these LN doublets can kind of give these players a run for their money. But you do have a little bit of a calmer section here with just some gallops to keep you in check before you move on to the next section of the map.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that analogy you had during Vanguard 1. This map has a lot of layers to it. It's basically like that aforementioned onion, where you get into these sections where things kind of loosen up a little bit. You get this basically ride cymbal kind of section, and then you start to bring in the 1/4 streams of the piano into the gallops, and managing the transitions between those quick doublets into the 1/4s. A lot harder said than done. Doable, but just keeping the beat in your head while you play through them. It's very easy to trip up and misinterpret some of those gallops as a 1/4 and basically spike one of the streams afterwards.
This is basically Ghost Piano Edition.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit more predictable. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's entirely freeform. It's very structured in how it feels. But that piano melody can get kind of wild, especially upcoming. Going into the back half, the snapping does get pretty loose to interpret.
As we see some gallops being put into play here, just to give you a check, and then some streams. So crossing the 1,000 combo mark already as well. Going into this final third of the map. A little bit of doublets, a little bit more of a tamer section than what we have seen before, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of those streams do kind of return just to kind of sort of throw off the player. And as you can see, there are some prime examples in these streamy sections that do go on for a very short amount of time. And in with the final quarter now, some doublets in place. Nothing really to write home about in this final section of the map. Wouldn't be surprised if things get kicked off and up. Yep, I stand corrected.
Yeah, it definitely, the transitional moments in some of these solos really can catch you out if you're not ready. That singular 1/4 inside of those longer or speedier streams is very easy because you're switching your hand position afterwards depending on how you play it. So you're not going to end or not going to start the next stream on the correct hand depending on how you play it, and that can definitely get confusing after a while, especially because of the fact that we're going on well past 3 minutes. We're starting to get into the longer maps in the pool here already. I wouldn't be surprised if this caught some bans from teams purely on the length alone.
Yeah, this is definitely a pick that if you're not very consistent or you don't have the stamina to go through a map that, like, especially being at 156 BPM, which doesn't seem very fast to some people, but going on for nearly 4 minutes is definitely a trick. And here we go with Gate of Doom, and it's OD10.
Yeah, Joke was definitely ahead of its time. So basically, we don't play with mods in Mania. This is basically a hard rock pick. you're just sharpshooting accuracy. There's probably not going to be too much in terms of snap complexity, it's really just a bit of a consistency test, at least through this early going. The little gallops here and there, the feeling does change. You get that triplet swing here and there, but outside of that, I mean, nothing too difficult through this early going.
Yeah, more or less just some of these more 1/3 sections that don't really. Or actually, this is. I would assume this is like 1 second snapping. As I was going to mention after mention that stream, but in with a little bit of a doublet section to just kind of slow down the map. I wouldn't be surprised if it kicks up in the end. But those doublets, I would reckon those are 208 BPM. That is actually quite fast. Now that I think about it.
Very fast and on OD10, so don't really have a lot of leniency when it comes to playing those if you're not strictly on in terms of your timing. I could see just 200s just flying all over the place on this. It's probably not going to be a map where we'll see too many breaks, given the level of the players remaining. Maybe a mental hiccup here or there where we just see a surprising miss. But outside of that, this is, mapping-wise, the friendliest of the four maps that we've had so far.
And ending up the map with a very brutal gallop and stream section, and going in now finally with a closing stream that I would assume would end the map. And do not miss that final note.
Oh yeah, keep your hands on the keyboard until the playfield is gone.
And now we can move on to, I believe, our long note charts.
Yep, so
and
sticking true to form, there's going to be 2 LNs.
Oh, Vivid Velocity. Oh boy.
Yeah, there's some nasty ones in here. I'm looking forward to a couple of these, but we shall see what the wheel decides. It's not up to us.
And it's going to be Lollipop. This is a Joke 2 map. Joke 2 finals, I believe. So
Sounds
we're not
right.
going to be seeing Joke 1. Actually, will roll number 2 give us a Joke 1 map? Find out right now. And it's going to be Acid Burst.
I believe
this is Joke 1.
Ah, lovely. Alrighty, so elevated OD-LN, more than likely.
Yeah, this is OD10.
With some, I mean, the title of the song says it beautifully. There's probably gonna be some really nasty LN bursts where just column locking is inevitable. But
so basically, just lies on steroids is what I'm getting from this.
But we'll start with LN1 here, so we'll start with Lollipop.
Pretty tame beginning, just some doublets, or I guess we can call it shields.
I always
just
get
converting.
I always get the terminology wrong, so I don't try.
Shields are when there is a regular note, and then a long note kind of just appears right after.
Gotcha.
So it's like that single note is kind of shielding that long note, sort of.
That's a good way to think about it. But as we continue on here, basically just a very swingy start to this introduction. The LN length's not too arduous to think about. You can basically get to the 400 combo cap relatively free, unless you're just really disinclined towards playing LNs.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a tiny section of break there before we immediately jump back into that swing motion of song. I mean, this can kind of be reminiscent of our Rice 2 pick from semis, Re-ing, I believe is what it's called, with lots of doublets being handled in there, but kind of just converted to a long note pick. There are some releases in there that kind of give it that 89's momentum feel as well. I mean, with some kind of these sections that kind of trick up the player that have a bit more technical feel to them, just like that right there.
Yeah, there's
that kind of
definitely.
just. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's definitely some embellishments in some of these sections as the song progresses, but outside of that, I mean, if you are one of those players that is pretty rhythmically sound, you understand what the song is asking of you. You can kind of learn this just by listening to the song and paying attention to where some of the longer holds are.
Yeah, so we are approaching the final quarter now. Basically, the procedure of the map stays the same. We're gonna have these shield patterns with some pretty tricky releasing long notes to follow. I wouldn't be surprised if the consistency they have on this is top notch, I would say.
There's gonna be some nasty scores on this. Like, if you could play the 89's momentum and elevator, honestly, this should be a cakewalk in terms of what you're being asked for. Like, I'm surprised the wheel gave us a step down in terms of overall difficulty.
Oh, and there's a burst as soon as you said that, but it's not really that much to really bargain for. This is a
Yeah.
bit of a step down from what we have seen in some previous rounds. But we can't say the same for the next map.
Oh yeah, acid burst. OD10. Oh, lovely.
And
there we go.
Man.
Alright. Those are 1/6 LN bursts on OD10.
1/6 acid bursts on OD10.
You mistime any of those bursts, you are dropping so many 100s.
You're donezo. We're gonna have the funeral planning all set and done. We'll pay for your funeral, don't worry, Frank. Us here at the Joke Staff Team, I'm sure we have enough money or funds to pay for your funeral if you mess up on that burst.
I'll correct you. This is not that we are not the Joke Staff Team. This is the 1K World Cup team.
The 1K Staff Team, I'm sure, have the funds to pay for your funeral if you end up missing. Oh my!
I mean, it's doable. They're really telegraphed 1/6 bursts. Considering we've had hybrids that have had harder snap varieties in them, going as far as quarterfinals. I mean, these are for a finals level pool with 6 of the best 1K teams left. They're probably all salivating at these 2 picks. OD10 notwithstanding, like they're going to be some really good accuracy showdowns on these 2 maps.
There's probably some players just scoffing up this pick, honestly. Honestly, the only thing that really stands in the way are just those bursts, and most of it is. And then you can have these sections that are just basic streams with some gallops in between, something that we've already seen. And then closing was actually a pretty tricky doublet section that is at 180 BPM, giving some of that elevator vibes from last round. And mess up any of these and you're done for, I would say, especially at OD10. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some runs there at the end that could really swing a score if not handled correctly.
But we are now moving on to our hybrids, and I'm seeing some pretty familiar picks. I'm seeing Cybernetics. If the wheel can put the names upright, that would be awesome.
So you can read them.
Midnight City Wolf. Or Midnight City War. Not okay. Whatever. Let's just get to the first
hybrids.
roll here. The hybrids will stay the same. We will have 3 hybrids, and we're gonna see the Bridgeport run.
Yes, this map, Joke 2 Classic. I think it's part of the Love Pack, the best of.
Yeah, this is.
This is like, if you thought the LNs were a cakewalk, okay, we could turn to the hybrids for the difficulty. This is an incredibly hard chart to play through consistently. It's already off to a good start. Let's see what Hybrid 2 is going to be.
And is it going to be Cybernetics or Deep Ocean? It is going to be Deep Ocean, and oh my goodness, is this the if this is the deep ocean that I know, I don't think it is, but this is Joke 3 finals.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit more of a newer map gonna be in this pool. I believe it's nothing really much to write home about. We can move on to our final hybrid. I know I believe there's a fan favorite in this pool, and it's gonna get picked. I believe Epistrophe is a fan favorite. I believe this is also Joke 3, if I'm correct. I believe people enjoyed this from finals, if I'm correct.
I mean, they're gonna have to play it whether they like it or not. So I don't think any of these picks are as unhinged as something like Dot Angel. Maybe the
Yeah.
Bridgeport run, but Dot Angel was definitely the hardest we've seen in a while, at least in terms of how rhythmically complex it is. I don't think any of these are like that, but getting into the first hybrid, it is the Bridgeport run, and if you are familiar with the flashbulb, you understand just how technical their music can get. The introduction, very easy. You get these 1/4 streams or 1/4 gallops and doublets here and there, just to kind of settle you into the mood. And I think this is also one of the longer maps in this pool as well. So we're getting some pretty decent variety in terms of length as well. But then the streams begin to elongate here as we transition it over to you.
Yeah, Flashbulb has, like, if you've heard of Flashbulb's music, it can be charted into pretty streamy based stuff. And oh my goodness, I believe that's 180 BPM doublets and fast bursts that just come out of nowhere just to spice up the map a bit more. I mean, if you can play this, like, I'm pretty sure you can just play along to the song and you'll have a semi-decent score. Just having to go through the flow, or like go with the flow with this chart, I would say it's pretty simple to kind of handle the flow of this. It's just if you have the physicality to actually play through this, then you're good.
But then you get into the next third of the chart, the doublets that are, I think, topping out about 364 BPM. Start to come out in a little bit more perpetuity. You get some triples as well to kind of keep you on your toes, transitioning into them some nasty quick bursts as well. And this is another one of those songs that builds as it continues on. You get back into the main motif pretty often, given its length, where you get into this 1/4 stream section. But when you transition out of that into the, I would guess, the verses of this chart, that's when the polyrhythmic structures and basically what you know the flashbulb for begin to really shine. And stuff like that. Yeah, those nasty bursts.
Yeah, this is kind of where the map gets a bit more technical in this final third of the map. Like you mentioned, those very nasty bursts, and also keeping the tradition of having those 360 BPM doublets that kind of just show up out of nowhere. And then with just some gallops that are capping out at roughly 182 BPM, some streams as well. And then back with the simple of just having some gallops and then a stream. That has been most of the pattern throughout this map. But this is where, oh my goodness, yeah, this is, like, this final part, oh my! Yeah. This is where things, like, this is where kitchen sinks and ovens get thrown at you. But that's it. You have just this outro, and the map is over.
I can't remember I can't remember there's a jump scare here at the end. Yeah, you get back into the motif real quick. Basically just the ending goes back to the 1/4.
Kind of just like a haha, you got trolled part of the map.
Mm-hmm. Just checking if you're checked out at that point. But yeah, that was it for Hybrid 1. A nice little introduction to the category. Nothing too outrageous. I think players will be thankful that there isn't something completely unhinged to start this one off. But then we go into something like Devotion.
Yeah, this is a Joke 3 map, and yet again at a pretty significant length as well. 3:22 of length, 3 minutes 22, and already beginning off with some pretty nasty bursts. I believe those capping at 280.
Yeah, but again, the transitions into those bursts are pretty telegraphed. You're not basically trying to dig out what the noise you're following along to in the music is. So pretty easy to predict when those are going to come out. It's just transitioning out of them that is going to be the real pain point, because some of them do end on an elongated LM, so you can find yourself bouncing off of them. And sometimes they just go back into a 1/4 stream.
Yeah, that is, oh man, this is doublet heaven. As there's just so many technical patterns of this map. I mean, there are those doublets there that transition into those streams. There were some galloping sections, and now into some pretty nasty streams that do last for not the longest of time, but enough to kind of catch you off guard and lose your consistency, and back in with more of these nasty streams that transition into bursts, and a pretty tricky transition into this more calmer section with that long note.
Yeah, just a chance to recompose yourself. You're gonna get a nice good look at the scores, whether you want to or not, before diving into the back half, and we shall see where it takes us from here.
Yeah, that is getting into the final third of this map now. A little bit more calmer than what we have seen, but that's only just a calm before the storm kind of motif. As yep, there's a burst into the build-up into the final section of this map. Lots of these maps have been exceeding the combo mark of like high 1,000, 2,000 combo. Like, I believe we stepped up a few notches.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the length of the chart kind of lends itself to that, but ultimately, that bodes well for teams that might feel like they're going to catch some drops as we get into this next build-up section. You get these 1/3 into 1/6 feel type of streams, and they continue on. Those doublets make a reappearance as well to kind of keep you on your toes. And really, the point I wanted to make when we got to that first doublet section is like, you really have to kind of sell out for some of those jumps as well, because it's really easy to get complacent and maybe feel like you can flutter your way through them, but the good accuracy of some of these more physical players is really going to shine on something like this, I feel like.
Yeah, that ending was a crazy diamond to be shined upon. Oh my goodness. But here we go with the final hybrid map of these three maps. It's going to be Epistrophi, I believe, Epistrophy, something along those lines. And 185 BPM, so most of these hybrids being around like 140 to 180 BPM. So not the fastest thing in the world compared to what we have seen in previous rounds, but opening up with a more of a this seems to be more of a streamy based hybrid is what I'm seeing so far. Yeah, lots of bursty, tricky, streamy. There's kind of literally everything.
This feels like a tiebreaker light type of pick, where it's like a lot of the tiebreakers we've seen so far have this like 1/8 into 1/4 like death stream type of beginning to them, and then kind of easing off a little bit before bringing you back into it. The good thing is that this is only 1:50, so half the length of the previous two hybrids. And honestly, if you have the physicality for it, this is not a bad pick. These doublets can't catch you out if you're not too careful, if your hands don't get off the keyboard or off your preferred key fast enough. You can find some misses there, but ultimately these 1/4 streams are very easy to handle in the grand scheme of things.
we are approaching to the final part of the map. More of these bursts and streams, and oh man, those are those 370?
Popping out of it, yeah, 370 double.
Yeah. And just like that, the map has concluded. Kind of a very tricky ending to hit upon, but as long as you're able to hit that section, you should be okay. I would expect to see more of the physically capable players that have like more insane physicality than others to kind of go for this.
Mm-hmm.
But with that out of the way, speaking of physicality, time for streams or speed. And Speed of Link and Wonderflux. Oh man.
I don't know about you, Sonny. I really hope those two get picked because those are those are some nasty maps.
I believe Speed of Link. Oh no, I was about to say I thought that was in the best of joke, but no. We're gonna see Rocky. Oh man, have fun trying to find the last part. Yeah, Buine. That is joke 2. Joke 2 finals.
Yeah, we're gonna see some absurd BPMs at this point. Like,
yeah,
we keep saying the physicality oriented teams, they're going to devour these.
Yeah, this map goes up to 277 BPM, ladies and gentlemen. And are we gonna see Speed of Link? Are we gonna? It's Speed of Link. We're gonna see Speed of Link. Oh my goodness, this is Joke 2 finals.
So a all Joke 2 speed map pool.
Yeah.
Kind of disappointed we didn't get Wonderflux. Wonderflux has some disgusting streams. I'm running out of superlatives to describe some of these patterns because they really are just a marvel to behold. But regardless,
this one we can just say the funny.
The funny patterns. But yes, 277 BPM, as you mentioned, Joke 2 finals. It is going to be Rocky Buine. And I mean, 277 BPM, just double that. That's your 1/8, your 1/4, or 1/4? The 1/8 bursts that come out here, what is that, 554 BPM?
Yeah. So, I don't know if you're aware of the Love Map CRT. That's kind of like, that's like nearing that almost. I believe that's like 600 some odd BPM that it reaches at some points.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more tame in regards to its pattern structure. These 1/3 gallops, the 1/4 taps basically in between, varying in structure. So you get some 1s, you get some 3s, you get some 2s in there. Definitely got to pay attention to the transitional moments outside of that. Your hands can kind of get a little crazy, and that's where the misses occur. But as we continue on here, no elongated 1/8 streams as of yet, but I imagine there's going to be a couple that go on for a long enough length of time that will cause some level of discomfort. But as it stands right now, pretty manageable when it comes to speed picks.
Yeah, like this tame course only really that I've seen, only having these 277 bursts that don't really last very long, and then just this tame. Oh, never mind.
There you go.
I take back everything I say. We have the funny.
That's a good way of putting it. You get some LNs as well, but these are at a fast enough BPM that they're basically rice notes, but definitely do have to respect the length of them. You don't want to give away too many 200s because you're overholding, or if you're not paying attention to when the releases are. But outside of that, just decorational LNs is a good way to describe it.
As we approach nearing the final quarter of this map, some more bursty sections with are kind of like in with these like speed or like these stream sections that kind of just go in back and forth at a rapid pace. And oh man, some more of the funny.
The elongated 555 BPM streams. That being said, it's kind of like Bison Charge towards the end. Those big wall of streams that occurred at the end of that chart. If you can handle that section, this isn't that much of a step up in terms of how long you're having to hold those streams for. So, could have been worse. It could have been Wonderflux. But I still think teams might stray away from this because when it comes to stuff like this, length of time becomes a very big factor. And at 3 minutes 20 seconds, that is a lengthy chart.
And here we go into probably the most infamous, like, if you want to talk about speed, just speed in general, you kind of just go over to this song in general. I know there's lots of infamous charts on this map, and I'm pretty sure in all modes that kind of just have their speed of link. And oh man, this also being in Joke 2 finals, not as fast as Rocky Buene, but still having more of the traditional, just more of these bursty patterns that do kind of just throw you off, and in with a calm section. But if you know speed of link, oh boy, that is just only the beginning of it, because this map, I'm just saying, this map this is what, 263? Mm-hmm. This peaks at 285. And you'll see. There's a speed up.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. I'm waiting to see if there's going to be like 1/4 streams that have like 1/8 bursts nestled into them. It's been a really long time since I've seen this chart. But
yeah, and here we go.
1/2s to 1/4s. Still manageable.
Yeah, it's still the same patterning as what we see in like the opening bursty section. Nothing really to mention, just that it's roughly 20 BPM faster. But then there's also, I would say, a pretty tricky slowdown section after this. There's only really this section, and then there's just this ending. More or less, it's kind of just reverse Masamune. Instead of it being at the beginning, it's at the ending, where the map gradually slows down, which can definitely trick up your timing if you're not careful enough. But just like that, that will conclude your speed picks.
Yeah, definitely not the hardest things we could have gotten here, but definitely something to consider going into if you want to try to bully your opponents in terms of physicality. But there's only 2 more maps before the tiebreaker, and oh boy, the SVs for this round could potentially be very bad.
Are there any 1 millisecond differences or like in notes in this pool? Can we get some confirmation?
If you thought overlap was bad,
I'm seeing W equals addict. And
yes. Yes. Oh, thank God. We didn't get Wonderflux, but we got the next best W. W equals addict. This song, this chart is...
This is...
mean.
This is Joke 3 finals. Yes. And same with... pretty much with Spider Tank. This goes up to 1 an infinity BPM. There are... Oh yeah, go ahead.
When we get into the chart, I'll say my piece about this chart, because it's an abomination. But we have one other SV chart to go into. Which of these is it going to be?
Is it going to be another? It's going to be another. I believe that's another Onomi song. Yeah, Onomi, and this is Joke 1, which, ladies and gentlemen, OD10 SV.
That is an instant ban. That
I'm pretty sure Aleph Null was OD10 as well, and people played that.
Yeah, but Aleph Null, like, that was manageable.
Yeah.
Okay. SV1. You like teleports? Welcome to overlapping LNs. the chart. This is memorization central. And if you know this Quad A song, you understand just how rhythmically dense the words can get, or basically the dare I say scatting in it. That's what this chart follows. But you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know it judging by the SVs in this chart. It just looks like a 1/4 stream.
This is Spider Tank on steroids. And oh my god!
It gets worse, Sonny. It gets so much worse.
Okay, this gets any worse!
This is the easy part. This is the predictable part. You can read through this.
Okay, I could probably read through that section, but
here we go. Where's the rhythm? Where are you supposed to hit at any portion of the stream?
The answer is yes.
Exactly. That being said,
I mean, like, what if your fingers just did that?
Honestly, like, I was gonna go into this. I will say, this is learnable. It is very learnable. Yeah. But
yeah,
I know there is one person that is probably looking at this right now and is just like, bet.
Yeah, we all know it.
We both know who it is. But there are other people.
Know who it is.
There are other people in this tournament that have the capability, the SV prowess, to be able to read something like that. So yes, while we are gawking at this in amazement, we're probably gonna see some really nasty scores on this.
It looks like it looks like the teammate of the player that is gonna learn SV1 is getting called by them. So anyway, do you guys like OD10? I don't think we've seen a single OD10 map this entire map pool. So how about some OD10?
I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but
I'm being sarcastic when I say that.
Lovely. Yeah, this is probably going to be the more manageable of the two, because in Joke 3 we understood what the length of which they could push SV. This was still a little bit exploratory in terms of what people could handle, so it's probably the easier of the two to learn. It's just these 1/4 streams, nothing really too absurd in terms of teleports just yet. I'm sure there's some gimmicks that'll pop out here or there, but already in comparison to W=Addict, significantly easier.
Yeah, the only thing I could really say is that this is way more physical than what we've seen in other rounds. I know this is the same, like, Alephno was in the same pool as this, but like this is I would say this is like our reading pick, and the other being pure memorization. Yeah. It's just that this is more dense. Like there's a lot, like as you saw, there's like these like bursts that are at 200 BPM. I would assume are not that easy actually.
Yeah, this one feels like, I always like to say it whenever SV picks get rolled, an anticipation check. Can you trust yourself to remember where the slowdowns, the teleports, the stutters are in this chart? Because on OD10 you don't have that much room for error. And
yeah, and
go ahead.
I feel like OD10, like the OD is what's gonna be kind of the big roadblock in the way for trying to do this properly.
Yeah.
Because like we get it, like Alephno was the same ordeal, but it's Alephno. Most people know that like song by default. I don't know if people know Confusion Part 1. I know Onomi is a pretty well-known artist, but I don't know if Confusion Part 1 was ever really mentioned upon. So if you don't know the song, then good luck. But yeah. Anywho, that concludes our regulation picks. We're going into our tiebreaker now. And I'm seeing, oh man, Transhumanist is it? Yeah, I guess that was a tiebreaker for one of the joke tournaments, but here we go. And it's gonna be Transhumanist.
So, believe this was joke 2.
Yes, you'd be correct.
And I was talking to Jaye not too long ago, and they were like, I hope I can't remember if they said they hoped this didn't get rolled, but also I think they wanted it to get rolled because this is definitely a chart that they have made. Or they and I believe Sparks is usually their main collaborator on these.
Yeah.
But without further ado,
And-
your tiebreaker for finals.
Yeah, good luck and have fun with this. I would say Transhumanist is a pretty well-known song overall. I know there's that Oceania ranked map, and I believe there's also a Tycho dip on that map, if I'm correct. And also, to any of my Canadian fellas in the chat, the background kind of looks like the shape of Ontario.
That's a very interesting thing to point out, but I'll take your word for it. I do not know my Canadian geography. But regardless, this is just shy of 5 minutes, so not that 6.5 minute gauntlet that we got last round in Super Memories. But as we get into it, this is a pretty calm start. Just 1/4. Is your reading in check? Are your nerves in check? We're gonna dive into it as we get through this build-up.
Yeah, and here we go into the first drop of this map. More or less, just some of these tricky 174, or I believe this would be 348. Yeah. But just some bursts, kind of reminiscent to like that halfway section in Super Memories with those burst sections. And now in with a pretty tricky doublet section that transitions in and out with some triplets.
Yeah, the LN accents on the 1/4 streams. Nothing to write home about. You can still play those like rice. And again, a very telegraphed section. You can kind of feel where the rhythm's taking you. Some doublets just keep you in check. I think that was a real like motif that was followed in finals for Joke 2, that any like short buzz was usually just a doublet instead of like a triple. So when you get to those, you can pretty much get away with defaulting to a doublet.
Yeah, as we are approaching another drop, I'm more or less just pretty tame section before we get into it, and a pretty streamy based section going into this back half of the map, and of course some 348 BPM bursts, because why the hell not?
I mean, those are really manageable. They're very isolated. You're not transitioning into 1/4 out of them, so pretty kind positioning. The doublets at the end of the 1/4 streams aren't as nice, but still in manageable positions. Now we begin to get those 1/4 into 1/8 transitions. But I mean, with how many maps we've had that have had this this pattern structure, I feel like everybody at this point is very used to seeing them and understand what they need to do. These doublets, though, as we continue on into the last quarter, that's another story. Again, you kind of need to sell out at the end of these 1/4 to ensure that you get that second note down. I could see a lot of misses getting spiked just because you're not respecting those doublets at the end.
Yeah, especially with these doublets like you mentioned, and even with those LNs as well, transitioning in and out so quickly can definitely trip up some players as well. But now there's only really this section left and then the ending to go. There's this burst, some doublets, just kind of the usual as you're nearing the end of this gauntlet of a chart. Not the longest thing in the world. I mean, we have seen longer maps. This is absolutely nothing compared to Super Memories from last week's, or actually this week's semifinals. But yeah, just ending off the map now with these final long notes. Nothing really to write home about, and just like that, this will be your map pool for the 1K Mania World Cup Finals round. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, we're sorry. Blame the wheel
Yeah, blame the
and
wheel.
talk about it. Talk about it in the Pray for Good Pool channel. Um,
Yeah,
otherwise,
I look forward to seeing the reactions. I feel like a lot of players remaining might feel like this pool is a little bit easier than last round's,
yeah,
but with that being said, I mean, with the quality of the players remaining, a lot of these could come down to the wire. We saw some really intense matchups last round. I expect that to continue going into this round.
oh yeah, for sure. Especially with this bracket, Japan versus Australia, Seed 1 versus Seed 2 fashion, both punching their ticket into the podium section as well. Going to be happening next week, as well as the United Kingdom versus United States C and China versus United States A. So kind of all these matches are really hyped, and I'm looking forward to see that next week. Are you looking forward to seeing these next week, Sparky?
Oh, absolutely. These are top billing in order for watching. I hope that they are at amicable times, because judging by some of the time zones, I imagine actually scheduling not that bad. I think China versus USA might be the only real pain point, but outside of that, there's no like 17-hour time differences here. That being said, I mean China USA, but regardless, a reminder to those in the losers bracket, you do have that conditional, so be sure to reschedule that if needed as well. We don't want any of the final 6 losing by default because they did not pay attention to when that second match was. But I think everybody remaining understands the implications of where they are.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Sonny, you have anything else left to add before we close things out?
I will add that the map pool will be in the master sheet when as soon as possible, as well as the statistics sheet will be updated with the statistics for the semifinals round. If you want to flex on your friends that, hey, I did this, as well as schedules and all that jazz will be happening later on. But for now, we will catch you all later. So long, everyone.